This is a film study that's going to focus on the Mike McDaniel scheme, particularly two elements of it that I'll focus on. I think that there's so much film out there, and I'm up to game number 6 at this point, that I have to break this up or partition it into a series or 2 or 3 parts. I expect him to sign as an offensive coordinator or head coach at some point. This is geared more towards the Detroit Lions, who obviously need a play caller. Dan Campbell did a pretty good job, I think, mid to late season in 2025, taking over from John Morton, that they've at this point, already fired. I think it makes more sense for Dan Campbell to have an offensive coordinator, a dedicated play caller, and someone with the creativity, if you ask me, and the ability to tailor or specify their attack against opposing defenses like a Mike Macdonald just seems to fit perfectly. So I'm going to begin this first segment or first part of this with the initial 3 plays of a random game from 2023. It's against the New York Giants, who were, not a real good football team that year, don't get me wrong, but it's to illustrate McDaniel's willingness to force you on defense to deal with his best players immediately, number one. Number two, it'll also give you an idea of the perimeter-based nature of the way that he attacks defense. Basically, from a horizontal standpoint, force you to defend every blade of grass or turf, if you will, in the case of Detroit, from sideline to sideline. So this is the first play of the game, 2023. I think it's week 4, maybe it's week 5. And they've got Jalen Waddle lined up at running back in the backfield with Achane as the backside X receiver, and then another running back, Raheem Mostert, extremely underrated if you ask me, lined up into the bunch or the compressed trip. So it's very speed-oriented attack down there, obviously, but I think it fits well in Detroit with, Jahmyr Gibbs, Jamison Williams, St. Brown can pretty much do everything. But this is a reverse on the first play of the game. And I'm going to use this play and another one a little bit later on to illustrate how Mike McDaniel, in my opinion, is going to force you to deal with his best players off the jump. It's a really well-designed screen. It's also personnel usage that I'm a little bit jealous of. I mean, you see so much vanilla 11 personnel attack across the NFL. Here you've got 3 players lined up in what would be considered anomalous locations for their position. 2 running backs, both lined up at receiver, a wide receiver lined up in the backfield. By putting 2 guys on the field at the same time, 2 running backs at the same time, I think it really presents the defense with some difficulties in terms of defending reverses or horizontal stuff like this. So one of the things I was struck by in watching film of the Dolphins, and I've really focused for the most part, 2023 and 2024 film is Tyreek Hill's willingness to go block. And in this case, he's taken on the front side, inside linebacker / nickel hybrid. I think it's Simmons. Look, his execution of those things, successfully blocking, sometimes it didn't work out. But the effort, I was a little surprised, to be honest with you. I'm talking about, right here, kind of track him for a moment, staying on a guy who's far bigger and stronger than him. I feel like Tyreek Hill, at least the film that I have watched, again, I'm into the 6th game at this point, with the 7th being my intention to check out Miami's win over the Bills from, I believe, week 9 of the 2025 season when they ran for 197 yards and upset Buffalo 30-13. I don't think Tyreek Hill played in that one, obviously, because he suffered an injury. So getting back to the point about the way that they attacked here, the first play, reverse to Achane to the field, right? The ball is on the left hash. And again, you've got Waddle set up in the backfield here, who's a wide receiver, number 1. It's not unique how they're getting this accomplished. So they're pulling the right guard into the boundary from right to left on their screen, and that's just designed to occupy a second-level defender, influence him to step with that guard. In addition, the running back / receiver is moving across the midline, so he's crossing to his face, and you'll see the fake handoff to him, and then the little flip behind, lofted in the air perfectly to time it up so that Achane can catch it. It's a really nice job, if you ask me, by this by this center right guard, trying to give the field side inside linebacker some eye candy to move in this direction ever so slightly. But then in addition to that, the center is going to work all the way out in front. And you'll see him in a moment. He'll be kind of spot shadowed, helping out with a second or third level block. It's an expert usage of personnel that I think is a little bit anomalous across the NFL. Not one, but two running backs lined up at receiver with the threat, theoretically for a reverse to both of those guys to either side. And oh, by the way, that's Mostert, who's a running back, lined up at receiver here. Jahmyr Gibbs fits well here. Does David Montgomery, Keaton Mitchell for the Ravens, Derrick Henry, some of those guys probably not. The idea here is, I think, creating some positional versatility on the first play of the game, early in the game, making you defend his best players on offense. It's a different method of attack than I'm used to seeing from the Ravens and even the Lions to a certain extent. I mean, the Ravens, I think, in previous years have just kind of been, okay, we're going to run what we run, and you're going to either be able to stop us or not. The Lions, especially under Ben Johnson, a little bit more game-specific. This guy, perimeter-oriented with speed, they drafted speed guys, obviously, going to make you defend everything horizontally first. I have to, once again, point out the center's track here. So right guard pulling, like I said. Tackle's going to try to down block this defensive tackle. I think that's actually Leonard Williams before he got traded to the Seattle Seahawks. But check out the center's path to go get this done. He's going to get out in front, well beyond that line that I just drew. Perfectly timed up with the fullback, center out in front. It's nice design. Other teams in the NFL, college, high school run this play. It's the personnel usage and where they're deployed or where they're lined up pre-snap that makes it a little bit unique and interesting to me. Very next snap, after that reverse to Achane, then you got a 1st and 10 from the right hash now, and they're going to attack to the field immediately. It's going to be, what I refer to as a fast sweep. So some of these situations for McDaniel, in my observation, again, I'm only talking about 6 games, so a small sample size is, if you're going to be in too high safety structure, number one. Number two, put a, quote, nickel hybrid on the field, then he's generally going to attack in these areas, out to the perimeter, force you to defend and or roll these guys down either pre-snap or on the motion. That's a little bit of a generalization. Like I said, it's a small sample size at this point. It's Tyreek Hill, running across. He's a special athlete, obviously. How does he equate to this offense? How does this offense, equate a Tyreek Hill type if Mike McDaniel ends up in Detroit? Jamison Williams, right? Isaac TeSlaa, fantastic athlete. St. Brown certainly could be used on stuff like this in Baltimore. Zay Flowers, Keaton Mitchell, et cetera. My point is, this is a guy who's going. There's been some times where I felt like already that he's too perimeter based, meaning everything is like if you had hot zones for like baseball pitchers or batters, I should say, what their batting average is, depending on where the pitch is located. His hot zones, Mike McDaniel, for play calling might, be extremely orange in these areas of the field and therefore make him, quote, easier to defend over time. Again, I'm looking at 2023 and 2024 film, and I do not see teams, rolling safeties down immediately or early in the game, kind of telling me that they do not have that data. The data has not pushed them, the defenses facing Mike McDaniel, to make those types of decisions. The third play in this sequence, and this will be all I'll talk about from this game in particular, you think about Achane on the reverse initially, Tyreek Hill when the ball on the right hash, a fast sweep to the field. The very next snap, the third of the game, they're lining up in empty quads. So what I mean by that is you got a number 1 receiver, 2, who's actually a fullback, 3, who's a receiver, and then a tailback, which I think is Mostert. So it's 21 personnel, right? You've got running back or tailback, as I refer to it, fullback, and tight end. So that's 21 personnel, but it's not a 21 personnel formation. It's empty quads closed, meaning there's a tight end, nobody up to the top side. There's no receiver set into the boundary. And once again, giving you motion and then attacking to the field. It's a screen to Waddle. So Achane, Tyreek Hill, Waddle immediately. First 3 plays. It's a little bit of a nightmare when you're, in my experience, when you see 3 athletes like this, not at the NFL level, because every NFL team has fantastic athletes. But I'm talking about at the level that I've coached at, high school, youth football. If you see 3 consecutive plays, 3 different athletes immediately be able to make plays. This is a screen, and I think that McDaniel has a deep reservoir of screenplays that he can go to and his guys can execute. I'll have more on that here in a moment. That'll actually be the next facet that I'll cover in this video. It's well-timed. getting the offensive lineman out in front, as well as a fullback and a wide receiver. And you consistently see this kind of tunnel dynamic. And so what I mean by that is you end up with one player blocking out. In this case, it's going to be the receiver, an offensive lineman moving up, and then someone else kind of leading the way through. You get the end zone angle, and you'll kind of see what I'm talking about. This guy here, illustrated by this yellow line, is what I'm talking about. Kind of leading the way through for Waddle. I think that was by design. I don't think that was coincidence or accident. It certainly wasn't a coincidence that the first three plays, Achane, Tyreek Hill, and Waddle, all his three best weapons, at least at this time. Again, this is like week 4, week 5, 2023, his second year in Miami. So same play from the end zone angle, motion across from Mostert, and he's going to smack this safety. I believe that's Belton, but I might have my years wrong. He's going to smack him in the mouth. So these guys are well trained for what to expect, number one, but the ball is going to be out quick from Tua. And that's a limiting factor. I think maybe became a limiting factor over the years in Miami, is that Tua had to get rid of the ball quick. There were certain areas of the field that certain throws that maybe he wasn't able to make. You would not have that consideration in Detroit with Jared Goff, nor in Baltimore, obviously, with Lamar Jackson. So here's what I'm talking about, this kind of tunnel dynamic. So one block here is by the receiver, offensive lineman working up to the third level of the defense, that's a safety, and then this offensive lineman leading the way through for Waddle. It's not just this play. There's a pattern of their screens where the timing works out perfect, number one. Number two, you get kind of this cross nature and the wide receiver, running back, tight end, whoever, being able to run through that tunnel or funnel. It would maybe a better word to use. I think Mike McDaniel's screen game is superior to other teams. There seem to be more layers to it. There's definitely a wider variety of screen types. So this next portion of the video is going to focus on screens and the variable screen game that I think Mike McDaniel appears to know how to teach and then implement and call at just the right times. And I'm going to use this play from a 2024 matchup against the Bills. I believe this one was a 30-27 loss. This is a 3rd and 11. I think it's the second or maybe the third possession, and they just happened to be in the perfect call for Buffalo to drop out from this, kind of a fake blitz look, like I said, on a 3rd and long. You got, Taron Johnson, the nickel DB, is going to drop to the flats. Inside linebacker going to drop to the hook. Dime defender for the Bills is going to drop to the other hook to curl. And then a flat defender is going to sit in the flats here. Basically ends up being what I would refer to as a quarter half, or a cover 6. It's a downfield screen, which is a little bit of a misnomer. Screens should occur behind the line of scrimmage. And the way they get this done from a timing standpoint is these blocks are generally occurring, not just on the specific play, but other iterations of it. They're generally occurring after the guy getting the football has caught the ball. In this case, they actually kind of does not. But they're taking advantage of the tendencies of really any defense, but the Bills in particular. It's quarter, half. And so you have this dynamic that occurs whereby you've got kind of a cross-block scheme occurring. So I'll backtrack here in a moment. But I'm referring to these two blocks here against the two hook-to-curl defenders. Hook-to-curl meaning generally located on or near the hash. It depends on the spot of the ball. Flat defender between the hash and the top of the numbers. And then curl-flat defender located more closer to the top of the numbers up there. But what I'm talking about is the way that these two blocks occur from here. And then the motion man here, clearing a path or a lane for the running back after he catches the ball to run through. So kind of this cross-block nature, but it occurs down the field. Very well coordinated. I do think or wonder if, maybe this block occurs before the ball is caught, but that could be because the defender was engaging. So, the legality of it on this particular play, I really don't care. I'm talking about the situational awareness, the ability to have these plays installed, number one. Number two, the situational awareness to call them at just the right time, at just the right, against, I should say, just the right coverage. Ironically, the Bills' defense's safety here, I think it's Rapp, was actually called for a penalty here, even though he appeared to be run over. So it kind of added some yardage gained there. Let's give you the end zone angle. Ball's on the right hash. That doesn't necessarily matter here. The screen is going to occur, near the other hash. This is the perfect call for this specific coverage. You're talking about divisional opponents, the third season for Mike Macdonald in 2024. He had been there in 22, 23, and then 24 as the head coach / play caller. Because you're getting these two guys dropping out, Lewis, and then I think it's Bernard, it becomes, quote, easier to get them blocked in this cross-block dynamic. So a receiver who's off-screen to our right is going to go get Lewis, and then the tight end who is just on the left-hand side, 9 o'clock position of our screen, is going to go get Bernard. This appears to be, extreme coordination and understanding of the coverage that they were probably going to get, number one. Number two, pretty exquisite teaching of the timing for both of these blocks downfield. Again, you shouldn't be able to block down the field on a pass play that's beyond the line of scrimmage, but if it's timed up well and the routes work out as far as the coverage, the depth of the second-level defenders, if these two guys didn't drop out, if they were 2, 3, or 4 yards closer, then those blocks would either A, have to occur too soon, or B, they would have been able to disrupt the catch and the run after the catch. In this case, Mostert is able to pick up the first down, and this is the safety who gets run over and somehow gets a penalty called on him for it. I don't really know enough about the game, the broadcast version of the game, I should say, to understand why that occurred, but you can see the running back has clearly lowered his helmet to make contact, but in any case, it's a tunnel nature of the screen, very similar to the second play of the game against the Giants in 2023 that I talked about. I don't think McDaniel is a guy who has too many screens. I think he's a guy who has 10 of them, and in each iteration, his players, his offensive linemen, running backs, receivers, tight ends, they've practiced each one, 1,000 times each, and they're fluent in every variety. Another screen, albeit one that A, is not successful, and B, nor does it occur down the field. So we're backtracking a little bit from a chronological standpoint. 2023, I think week 5 or maybe week 6. This is going to involve that out motion that Mike McDaniel and the 49ers and other teams have kind of, popularized. At this point, 2025 NFL season, everyone uses it a ton. Back then, 22, 23, you didn't see it so much. But they're going to turn this one into a screen. If you had a hit chart for his screens, generally wide receiver screens would occur to the field, the wide side of the field, with the ball on the left hash. Running back / tight end screens generally occur to the boundary, but that's, again, we're going off of 6 games data here for me. But it's going to be a really nice job by, I think it's Frankie Lavue before he signed with Washington, beating the right guard on this type of angle to disrupt the screen that I think is to waddle to the field. How much McDaniel would keep these screens as a large portion of the offense? I think it would be a lot. Was it related to the need to maybe get the ball out quickly for Tua, or eroding levels of trust between those two? I don't know, and I really don't care about those things. I'll be honest with you, the film that I watched generally reflected quite well on Tua. I did, get to pick and choose the games that I was able to go try to evaluate. Fullback being used to the field as a lead blocker, 2 offensive linemen. There seems to be layers or levels of strategy for McDaniel on who he puts out in front on these screens. In this case, the right guard unable to get there, and Frankie Lavue, really good angle here to go make the tackle on Waddle for a very short gain. I will say that one thing to point out is that this is the first play of the game. I should have mentioned that in the lead into this particular snap. Kind of almost a college mentality at times when watching McDaniel's offensive play calls early in games, meaning get the ball out on the perimeter, make the defense tackle your guys, get out of their structural too high safety structure. In the case of the Buffalo Bills, who generally major in that. This will be the last play that I'll show. This is, again, moving to a different game, or the game that I've already covered, I guess. Week 9 against the Bills, a 30-27 loss. And it's after a penalty occurred on the offense, so you got a 1st and goal from the 15. Achane is going to run a one-man screen essentially into the boundary. Left guard going to release immediately up to the will linebacker from a too high safety structure. If you can get second-level defenders, both second-level defenders handled, and what I mean when I say that is that the will linebacker, who you can see is trying to gain ground right now on Achane, and then the Mike linebacker who generally is lined up to the field. If you can get both of those guys occupied for an athlete like Achane or Waddle or Tyreek Hill, whoever, then you can create a lane for them. I think you've also got OBJ, Odell Beckham Jr., who's getting up to the nickel defender, Taron Johnson, and that just creates a lane for Achane to run onto open space. A bad idea defensively to give those guys so much room. Pretty cool, the intricacies, the way that McDaniel got this accomplished. I'm talking about the route by Tyreek Hill lined up right here as number 3. Watch as he gets to the second level of the defense, how he'll kind of bring his route in and then back over the top of this inside linebacker, influencing, encouraging, or maybe some would say forcing that linebacker to open up and turn and now have his back to where the screen is coming from. So we're talking about Achane. I think there's levels to everything that's called in the NFL, right? All of those guys are at the top 1% of the top 1% of play callers, offensive play designers, coaches. I do think Mike McDaniel's screen game, for me at least, appears to be pretty high level compared to, most of the other teams that I get a chance to watch. As I said a couple of times earlier in the video, I've worked through 6 games at this point. The 7th one is going to be a Week 10 win in 2025 against the Bills, where Miami ran for 197 yards. So, if you're a Lions fan, Ravens fan, whatever, if you're interested in that, that'll probably be part 2 of this series of film studies. Myself and EA, Edgar Allen, are intending or planning, I should say, on Saturday morning to put out kind of a dual film study look at Mike McDaniel's offense and Kevin Stefanski's in Cleveland. I think these are general observations for me that I'm going to kind of tailor to the film that I've watched. Because I only really watch, Ravens games, Lions games, and Seahawks when I can, some of these patterns that I've noticed are a little bit new to me. So forgive me if, you noticed them 2 or 3 years ago. I think McDaniel does a really nice job of not identifying his talent, designing plays to accentuate the talent that he has. Yes, of course, they drafted for speed. So, his style of offensive play calling, what he wanted to do, influenced the draft, but it could, go the other way. The personnel that he has in his next stop, Detroit, Baltimore, wherever, could shift or alter or move his play calling somewhat in one direction or the other. I think he's a guy who likes to throw the first punch in terms of game planning. So for every situation, first 2 or 3 plays of the game, first third down of the game with the ball on the left hash versus the right hash, I think he's got a different plan depending on the team he's facing. That's obvious at the NFL level. To me, I would put him in the upper echelon of guys that I've seen, try to do that. Point number 2, it would be stated by most people that Tua was a limiting factor at some point. I didn't see that in the film that I watched specifically, but I recognize that, he did end up getting benched, later in the 2025 season. McDaniel's the guy who made that decision. I'm just letting you know that wasn't a huge part of my analysis here. What I saw from the film, which generally was 2023 and 2024. Screen game really nasty, and that's why I chose to focus on 3 or actually 4 plays there. I think it's taught well. They execute multiple screens quickly, efficiently. One of my favorites is obviously the downfield screen on the 3rd and 11 against Buffalo in 2024 to Mostert, that ends up getting the conversion. Attacks on the perimeter with speed that is specific to his personnel and also suited to the defense he's facing. 2 high safety structure out of a base nickel, Buffalo or the Giants in 23. You're generally going to see the football, go out to the perimeter, out to the edges, and you're going to have to tackle those guys in space. For Detroit, Gibbs, Jamison Williams, Amon-Ra St. Brown, all of those guys fit in that dynamic. Zay Flowers, Keaton Mitchell in Baltimore as well. I think the angles of his attack at times, the concepts he uses, the angles appear to be slightly different. The timing of the plays is a little bit quicker than others. And not just the pass game, but the run game as well. I know Tua, when he was decisive, for me, the film that I saw, what I focused on for this video, when he was decisive, looked really good. How does McDaniel fit with the Lions? Or either team, Ravens or Lions. I think the Ravens are so up in the air because they're looking for a head coach. Dan Campbell's just looking for an offensive coordinator. And that's why I tailored or titled this video specific to Detroit. I could change it later, depending on where McDaniel signs. My point is, with the personnel that Detroit has, I think anyone could be successful. Mike McDaniel, to me, really looks like a great fit here. Because of the intelligence of Jared Goff, the independence with which Goff can operate out on the field, pre-snap and post-snap, I think it'd be a great pairing. Along with the speed, the multiple playmakers that they have, Sam Laporta, to me, would be the best tight end that a healthy Sam Laporta in 2026 will be the best tight end that Mike McDaniel has had the opportunity to deal with, although I know he was in San Francisco, with George Kittle. I think the speed of the guys that he could deploy with some of the plays that I showed here, Gibbs, Jamison Williams, St. Brown, etc. It's not really about turning a 2-yard loss into a 5 or 6 yard gain. It's about turning what could be a 3-yard gain into a 6-yard gain. Occasionally, through a really good block or a broken tackle, turning it into a 30-yard gain, right? And getting more manageable 2nd and 4 to stretch the defense horizontally and set up, play action passes from under center, some of his more creative stuff. Again, I wasn't trying to be critical of Tua here on the front end moving into this film study, and the things that I saw was generally reflected, pretty well of his play from 2023 and 24. I will have a second one that I do independently or just on my own work, and then possibly a third to follow up with Saturday morning, again, working with EA, Edgar Allen, a guy who I did Inside the Coverage with. He's another Ravens content creator throughout the season. You guys as Lions fans, if you listen this long, first of all, thank you. Second of all, you may not know exactly who that is. I think Goff would be a huge upgrade for McDaniel. I think that situation in Detroit looks extremely attractive to him. The patterns that I noticed, I kind of read out to you guys earlier. I don't know if the data really supports that he is particularly effective early in the game, first, second, third drive. I don't know that. All right, I do know this. When he came to Baltimore late season 2023, when we had our fantastic defense under Mike Macdonald, his second year in Baltimore, McDaniel and his offense really gave us trouble early, the first quarter and a half. Eventually, they got obliterated, right, in the second half. I think, in summary, run game organization, run game effectiveness, A to A+. Screens, just as good, in my opinion. Downfield passing game, I'm going to reserve comments there until I've compiled more data. Maybe that'll be a part of, the third video that I do here. The quick passing game is definitely something he relied on a ton. Maybe that's specific to Tua, and maybe it's not. I think it fits perfectly with Jared Goff or any other quarterback that he gets paired with that operates at an all-pro level. In any case, this is my first attempt to talk about the Mike McDaniel offense. I recognize there may be other people out there who have presented some of this information already a year or two or maybe even 3 ago. I didn't get the chance in other off seasons to do intensive film studies of Mike McDaniel, obviously because he interviewed in Detroit and Baltimore as well. This is my opportunity to do that now. So if you guys enjoyed the video, please let me know in the comments section, number 1. Number 2, if you think other Lions fans or football fans in general would enjoy this look at 2 specific elements, how he opens games, attacking with his best players, and then the screen game being being variable and also extremely effective, then please consider grabbing a link to this video, sharing it out on social media to help this content get more reach.